Welcome to TechUnited's BetterPlanet launch event. Happy Earth Day. I hope you're doing well. See a lot of you signing on. Great to see so many familiar faces, some new ones. Listen, treat this like you would a normal in-person event. If you've been to these before, you've heard me say this, but drop into the chat your comments about the event, maybe introduce yourself, say where you are. It's good to see so many of you. But I'm really excited to welcome you to this year's BetterPlanet launch event, where we're going to be sharing more about the $50,000 prize, our focus on electrified transportation. This isn't the transportation part, but this is what happens when you give me a small budget and tell me we're doing something about electricity. We've got an awesome program coming up. Before we get into it, I've been in this role now for about a year and a half, and I'm really proud of our work in leaning into a few directions and teaming up with organizations like PSEG and Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas and so many others, so that we can have a differentiated point of view and attract startups to say to them, we can help accelerate you in certain categories. And you're seeing that happen here with clean tech, with PSEG. You're going to see more from us with the health and life sciences area, with smart cities and more. And so stay tuned for a lot more to come with TechUnited New Jersey. And so on today's program, we have some fantastic special guests. We've got the governor, we've got mayors from around the state sharing what a clean energy future means to them. We've got a look back at last year's challenge and the winner with Wex Energy. We've got BlackRock's co-founder, Rob Capito. We've got CEO of PSEG, Ralph Izzo. And we have an amazing guest in Neil deGrasse Tyson, America's astrophysicist. And so, without further ado, let's check back on last year's inaugural program. How can we create opportunity and an advantage for things that can be strengths in the state? And so the council will be running a variety of programming throughout the year around clean energy and clean technology. The first program is this Impact Challenge.
What you've laid out really is a great example of what equity looks like in terms of meeting customers where they are, not exactly where we need to be, and then giving everybody the same thing and trying to figure out who's going to keep up. So let's continue the conversation about equity. Because energy is becoming far more technology driven. We can talk about energy efficiency, EVs, charging infrastructure, et cetera. How do we kind of avoid an energy divide like we saw with the digital divide?
It is such a galvanizing event for your team, for investors, for press. As a startup, you're just looking for ways to generate energy around your business. And this competition is generating a ton of energy for each of these companies.
Like the one you've created with TechUnited and PSEG to stimulate and activate the markets to support these burgeoning technologies. And that's something that's really important moving forward.
Okay, Rachel and Wex Energy, congratulations. You won the TechUnited Clean Tech Impact Challenge.
Thank you. We are very
I would
excited.
ask you how you're feeling, but I think it came through.
I think we let you know.
I also caught up with Wex Energy recently to see how they've been doing since they won the 2020 BetterPlanet Challenge. Great to see you. Ron and Rachel, how have things been going since you won last year's TechUnited BetterPlanet Challenge?
It's been a terrific year for us. Despite COVID, we're just coming fresh off the Incubate Energy competition, where Tennessee Valley Association Authority has picked up our pilot proposal. We'll be meeting with them actually later today, and we hope to get that launched soon. We are finalists, one of 12 semi-finalists in the GSA Department of Energy Green Proving Ground competition, and we're hoping to get all the way to the end of that competition as well, and have an opportunity to work with the federal government and the Department of Energy. And we've done a lot of lunch and learns for engineering and architectural firms, as well as providing quotes to potential customers. So it's been a very, very busy.
In addition to the $50,000 cash prize, you also earned a fast track access and mentorship with PSEG. How has that gone, and how has that helped Wex grow?
PSEG is amazing. They're just over the top. So to tell you that they stand down in their commitment, and it comes from the top all the way down from the C-suite office with Ralph Izzo and Rick Thigpen. The mentorship that they've provided, the assistance to help us. Our goals and our missions actually are very well aligned for Wex Energy aside PSEGs. But what's really atypical is that the competition sponsor like PSEG often just cares about their own PR opportunity. And that is not the case here. PSEG really cares about its mission and its customers, and they really care about helping us achieve our mission. And they're really giving us a lot of support to help us get there.
That's really fantastic to hear, not surprising to hear. We've experienced a similar impressive commitment to making sure innovation can thrive and can thrive here in New Jersey. What advice would you have for those looking to apply to this year's BetterPlanet Challenge?
My pitch advice is really to focus your pitch on responding to the competition's stated goals. Last year's challenge was looking for efforts that reduce carbon emissions, create jobs, address housing insecurity, and Windowskin, our product, really hits all three of those goals. So it was pretty easy for us to tailor the pitch that we had been working on and frankly had given, I can't tell you how many times, but we were able to tweak it as needed so that it was well aligned with the competition's and the challenge's goal. And the other thing I would say is, while there only is one winner, try to set that aside, whoever you are that enters the competition, because it's a great experience. And don't underestimate the value of simply presenting in front of the audience, because our presentation at TechUnited has led to meetings with potential customers, and that is really helpful. That moves the ball down the field.
I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, that is exactly the reason we put together these challenges. And it's really not just the cash, but the relationships that are created, the opportunities that come out of this. Beyond the mentorship experience with PSEG, as a startup founder myself, I really value the opportunity to get in front of big potential clients and partners. What's it been like when working with them overall, and how has it helped potentially accelerate your business?
So, as Rachel said, PSEG has been absolutely wonderful to work with. On the technical side, it's been about making sure that everyone is comfortable with the change that Wex Energy is trying to bring to the world. And honestly, change is hard. As an entrepreneur, Aaron, I'm sure you know this. Getting somebody to understand something new, you have to be patient.
Well, it's been really great to catch up with both of you. I'm glad to hear about the tremendous progress that you've had. Last time, if you remember, there was a lot of jumping around the room and high-fiving when we awarded the prize. I know now you've kind of got your act together and, professionalized the pitch, but it's great to see that things are going well. We could still end with the high five on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Great to see you. Congratulations. Apply to the BetterPlanet Challenge. We've got a lot of great things this year. Thanks a lot. Great to see you. It really was an amazing program last year. Congratulations to Wex Energy, and thank you to all the supporters and the mentors and those who applied. I'm really excited about this year's program. We're really stepping things up. Here to kick things off, New Jersey's Governor Phil Murphy.
Hey, thank you, Aaron Price and everyone with TechUnited for the opportunity to join you virtually for tonight's launch of the 2021 BetterPlanet Challenge. Along with PSEG President Ralph Izzo, I extend my congratulations to Wex Energy, the winner of last year's challenge. And I further thank all the 2020's participants. Because of you, New Jersey today can proudly boast to be the home of some of the nation's newest and most promising startups in the fields of energy efficiency, energy equity, and workforce development in the clean tech industry. As we work together to make New Jersey a global leader in clean energy and in the clean energy movement, everybody will win. But certainly there are new challenges that await. And that's why I'm especially excited by the 2021 BetterPlanet Challenge and its focus on the electrification of our transportation infrastructure and on the equitable adoption of electric vehicles. And this year's challenge is just as vital to our future as last year's. New Jersey is the ultimate corridor state. Our transportation networks, our roads, bridges, rails, and ports are the veins through which hundreds of billions of dollars in economic benefits flow. Modernizing our key infrastructure to be more sustainable over the long term is critical to our economic prowess. And we must ensure that these benefits are born from a core belief in environmental justice and in economic and social equity. This is how we will build a New Jersey that fully reclaims its mantle and legacy as the home of innovation that changes the world. I cannot wait to see what ideas come out of the 2021 Better Planet Challenge. And though there's only going to be one award winner, I know that everyone, especially the people of New Jersey, will be the ultimate winners. Thank you again so much for allowing me to be part of this evening, and I look forward to being with you in person once again, real soon. And I look forward to working alongside Aaron, Ralph, TechUnited, and each of you to build a stronger, fairer, more resilient, and energy smarter New Jersey. Thank you all. God bless you all.
Thank you, Governor Murphy, so much for joining us again this year. We really appreciate everything that you do for the innovation economy. Here to share more about this year's Better Planet Challenge, PSEG CEO Ralph Izzo. Ralph, thanks so much for joining us. Good to see you.
It's great to see you, Aaron. It's great to be back again. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you back. We really appreciate the partnership with PSEG. I know we can't tell for real where you are, but I've always started these questions with, or these interviews with, where in the world geographically are you actually situated at the moment?
No, so I'm in central New Jersey, and there is a central New Jersey. I'm at home in the PSEG service territory. So it's great to see the computers working, the power's on, and everything is fine. And it's a dreary day right now, but it's bright sunshine speaking to you, Aaron. How's that?
That's great. Well, happy Earth Day. It's great to see you. This year's challenge is focused on electrified transportation. Why is that so important to New Jersey?
Well, first of all, it's important for a variety of reasons. From an environmental point of view, as you're probably aware, I'm sure you're aware, transportation is the number one emitter of carbon in New Jersey. And then in general, obviously, as efficient as internal combustion engines have become, they do emit other pollutants as well. And New Jersey, being the most densely populated state in the nation, does have some commuting challenges and does have some air quality challenges. So electrification of transportation would go a long way to solving some of those environmental challenges.
New Jersey certainly has some challenges with transportation. And I think you put it very kindly compared to how maybe some of my neighbors may refer to some of the transportation challenges around the state. Why is this issue important to you and important to PSEG?
Well, when you look at the conditions in New Jersey, it really does result in you scratching your head to say, why don't we have more electric vehicles in the state and derive those benefits that we just alluded to a moment ago? We have this high population density, short commuting distances, a mass transit system that's functional but not ubiquitous. And candidly, right now, electric vehicles are not affordable for everyone, but we have a high per capita income population in the state. And yet we're, I think, 11th or 12th in the nation in electric vehicle penetration per unit of population. So we've always prided ourselves as a company in providing universal access to things that can make people's lives better. And 100 years ago, that meant natural gas, and 80 years ago, that meant electricity. And today, increasingly, it means things like energy efficiency, which we've talked about in the past, and now electric transportation, which is the topic for today. So any role we can play in helping to improve that electric vehicle penetration or electric transportation writ large is something that I think will benefit the state, and we just love to make that available to as many people as possible.
I appreciate that you talk about the ability and the desire to make a positive impact on people's lives. I've also heard you talk about no one really thinks about the utility until their electricity doesn't work. And it seems like as we get towards the electrified future, obviously, PSEG's role in this is quite significant, critical. We've talked about how do we make sure that we create that impact for all residents of the state and for the region in general. So how do you think about creating solutions or bringing to market solutions that have an equitable impact that don't leave certain communities behind?
Yeah, so that's a huge part of everything we do, and we want to make that a huge part of electric transportation as well. There are some pretty obvious ways to electrifying mass transit, for example, making sure that the urban centers, which are areas of congestion, have more commuters using electric vehicles so the air quality in those urban centers can change. But that's the exciting part about working with your team, Aaron, is that there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that probably have ideas that we would love to see brought to fruition to, as the phrase goes, bend the price curve to make it more affordable, to have all components of the population of all of our demographics have access to electric transportation. But even in the absence of those innovative, creative solutions that could maybe make charging less expensive or the vehicle less expensive, there are things we could do today from the point of view, as I said a moment ago, public transportation and more electric vehicles in the congested urban areas, enhancing air quality.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, right? We've talked earlier about, in retrospect, Wex Energy as a winner last year around some of the challenge statements that we put forth made sense. And as we've thought about or surmised on what might come up this year, I've shared, I think it's not so obvious. It's the tech entrepreneur often that finds the problems to these solutions. I'm curious what your experience was what it was like working with the TechUnited community last year and how it met or hopefully exceeded your expectations.
Yeah, so as one of the largest utilities in the nation, candidly, we don't have any shortage of large companies knocking on our door saying, what do you think of this new turbine? What do you think of this new transformer? Multi-million dollar investments. But small companies will often say to us, getting on your preferred vendor list, getting into your supply chain network is a bit of a challenge. And it's the old adage, right? Nobody ever gets fired for buying from IBM. At least that's something people used to say when I was younger. Maybe they don't say that anymore. So getting more intimate with the entrepreneurial community, meeting 59 companies as a result of last year's challenge is something that is, I won't say it's completely new to us, but something that we don't practice quite so often. And then being able to work with Wex with their window pane treatment and the ability to help reduce heat loss through one of the primary avenues for heat loss is something that really wouldn't have happened had we not engaged the way we did last year. And I'm sure that we're going to have a similar story to tell this year.
I can't tell you how proud it makes me to hear you say that, because the reason that we work on these kinds of partnerships is to do exactly what you just described, to accelerate opportunity with small companies who struggle to knock on the doors of big companies, as you mentioned, and see if we can create real opportunity. So I can't stress enough how much we appreciate the relationship with PSEG, with TechUnited, and really the tech community, because I do believe this is the critical linchpin of what will make New Jersey break out in the tech community. And I hope that other large corporate CEOs in the region follow your lead in this regard. I'm not just saying that. That's been my theory in how I believe we can propel the tech community of this region, and I appreciate your support there. On the flip side, what have you learned about PSEG in trying to bring innovation, which I'm sure you've done outside of Wex Energy, but in regards to this experience, in trying to bring something external from a smaller company inside the doors of a PSEG?
I found that when we deal with the entrepreneur, we do have to serve two masters. On the one hand, we're delighted to meet people who can come up with innovative solutions to customer problems, like not wanting to pay extra money for having your home heating the neighborhood. On the other hand, there are a whole variety of regulatory standards and conditions that we have to meet that then, candidly, to the entrepreneur may seem bureaucratic. What underwriting lab has measured the effectiveness of your technology? Is it tamper resistant? How easy is it to install? How much training do we have to put our folks through to have them do this? So there's a little bit of that procedure bound aspect of working with us that I'm sure may be a source of frustration for the entrepreneur, which we have to constantly rein ourselves in and realize that, okay, we're dealing with someone that doesn't have the resources of our typical vendors, a General Electric, a Siemens, folks like that. So we're having to navigate those waters together, and I think I know we're getting better at that, and I promise we will continue to emphasize that. But I do think that helps the entrepreneur as well, because they won't have to then go through and relearn those hoops when they deal with some other large utility, which will impose the same burdens on them.
You know, it's interesting to hear you talk about it the way that you do. I think your empathy towards what the entrepreneur may see as frustration is a learning process that does do exactly what you described, right? A startup and an entrepreneur is about finding product market fit. When they work with a large corporation like a PSEG, they find scale. And so working through those kinks with the PSEG, sets them up for success to find scale. So, having spoken to WEX, and we talked with them earlier today in this program, I know they've been really thrilled with the results here and appreciate the commitment, regardless of what, may seem to you as a frustration. They had nothing like that to share.
Well, that's great to hear, because I remember when I was talking to my team also in preparation, so how are we doing? Immediate feedback, so I go, we've had 9 meetings with them, and we're like, well, wait a minute, that may not necessarily be a good sign, right? Maybe after the second meeting, we ought to have a couple of deployments, but I'm glad to hear it, and I have no doubt that once we get the right rating system in place, that we'll be able to deploy that technology and save customers some money and save the planet from some carbon emissions.
I think that they appreciate the diligence, because I believe they understand that once it will work with PSEG, they can bring it to other markets. So the fact that they have a friendly ear in a partner here is part of the point. They have a little bit more of a partnership than the risk of you just get kicked out of the meeting and that's that. So I think they appreciate that. We've talked about the utility of the future, and I'm curious how you see innovation plays a role here. You're not just sitting back letting the market show the way. What do you see as the utility of the future? In particular, we're going to talk more about this a little bit later with Rob Capito of BlackRock. When you think about some of the goals around 2030, 2035, 2050, how does the utility play a role there?
So there are, if I just use climate change as one motivating, and there are others obviously, but that is a huge driver as we look to the future. And what that is going to create is a tremendous incentive to electrify transportation, to invest in renewable technology. And despite the fact that I'm a huge fan of renewable technology, the wind blows when it wants to blow and the sun shines when it wants to shine. And often that corresponds to when people want electricity, but not always. We refer to that as dispatchability, the absence of dispatchability. And there'll be an interest on the part of some folks to do things on their own, whether that's energy efficiency, whether that's rooftop solar. What that means is suddenly the grid is going to be a lot less centrally planned. And there's going to be a lot more unpredictability associated with it, either because of the dispatch problem of renewables or because of the individual decisions of self-supply, distributed technologies, as we call it. So the robustness of the grid, the flexibility of the grid, and the ability of utilities to manage the information associated with all of these new disparate sources of both supply and changes in demand is what's going to be the fundamental change that you see going forward. We will become, I still think it's very logically a natural monopoly from the point of view of a platform manager, not necessarily from the point of view of we're the only ones that own power plants. That's long gone. But the one who's coordinating the information flows so that these resources can meet the overall needs of society universally, I think will be the role of that utility going forward. So it'll be as much an information utility as it will be a wires utility.
In hearing you speak about that and the idea that the sun shines when it wants to shine, I think about from the entrepreneurial perspective, we often have to will the sun to shine regardless, which is kind of the point of this challenge. Even if you can't, sometimes you feel like, one must. But right. Why should entrepreneurs apply to win this year's Better Planet Challenge? Well,
because I do think that transportation in particular is the next huge challenge from a climate change point of view. In New Jersey, for the longest time, transportation has been the number one source of carbon dioxide. And that's just because of the fact that we have so much nuclear power in New Jersey. But it's only been the past 3 years that nationwide transportation has surpassed electricity generation. And as we continue to invest in renewable energy, be it offshore wind or onshore wind or solar, you're going to see that gap continue to grow where transportation looms larger and larger and larger. So if you participate once again in this challenge here in New Jersey, you're setting yourself up for a national reputation and an ability to have a much broader market. And you know that Congress is already talking about economy-wide being carbon-free by 2050. And it's no longer just about the power sector. People are recognizing that there are other sectors that need attention. So if you do it here and you do it this year and you do it first in New Jersey, there's a much bigger world out there for you.
Yeah, and I love that. We can do it first in New Jersey where, TechUnited has taken some stances and roles where we believe we can have a differentiated advantage. We believe this is one of those areas. And so if you're a startup working on something around electrified transportation, this is a place where you have a friendly ear and potentially a friendly partner.
Right. And that's something we talked about last year, Aaron, that I think merits repetition. The first place prize, I know WEX has used that money and that's been helpful to them. But that's not really the prize, right? The prize is the brand recognition, the alpha or beta site, whatever phase you're in, and the imprimatur that comes with, at the risk of sounding immodest, a highly respected company like PSEG using your product, and then your ability to use that as you knock on the door of others and the market opportunity. I mean, we're going to be investing as a utility $166 million in electric vehicles in the next few years, courtesy of the Board of Public Utilities, right? So it's the beyond the prize and the opportunity that follows that I think matters the most.
And wouldn't it be great if that happens with New Jersey-based companies in our backyard that creates jobs, that creates the cycle of economic improvement that we hope to have happen here.
Absolutely.
So last question, we represent this community of entrepreneurs. I believe you're pretty comfortable in your current role, but if you were to leave, what kind of a company would you start today? What sort of product or service would you bring to market? And I'm curious what you might even name your startup if you were to consider starting one.
So if I were to start today, there'd be one of three areas that I would go into. One would either be energy storage, whether that's for mobile applications or for fixed applications. I'm not sure that the grudging progress we're making on batteries is going to get us where we need to go, but that would certainly be another area. A second would be a company that was just brilliant at building models around data analytics, and whether the data analytics were how to maintain the grid more intelligently or how to optimize the route for my self-driving vehicle, I might go into that area. But in terms of a name for company, I would call it the super duper nice company. super duper environmentally friendly company.
Well, what people don't know is I told you more as a joke that it must include super duper in the title, but I really love super duper nice. It would be great. The super duper nice data company would be pretty cool.
Super duper sustainability company. SC or company. I don't know.
Well, maybe we can learn more about the super duper sustainability. We're going to bring you back shortly. But right now, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to send you backstage. We're going to turn next to Rob Capito and hear some of his views. He's the co-founder and president of BlackRock. But Ralph, we'll see you again shortly. Thanks again.
Great seeing you here. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Rob Capito, the co-founder and president of BlackRock. So before I get into some of these questions, from where are you actually joining us today? We're in our studio in Jersey City. I'm curious in the pandemic times where you're set up.
So I am live from Midtown Manhattan.
Excellent. How is Midtown Manhattan doing right now?
It's pretty quiet, I have to say. It's a humbling experience, and it's a little like the Twilight Zone here. It's, a lot of businesses have not been able to reopen, and there's a lot less foot traffic, and a lot of the restaurants are empty. So it's been coming back, but slowly.
Yeah, hopefully the end is very near. So a lot of people know BlackRock as this massive $9 trillion asset management company, but not so long ago, you were an entrepreneur like many of the folks in the TechUnited New Jersey community. Can you share how you got started, in particular, any of the struggles that you faced in starting the company?
Well, I consider myself still an entrepreneur. We are coming up with new ideas and new investment opportunities and new types of what I call wrappers to present those to different clients. But our genesis was that we noticed people did not understand the risk that they were taking in their investments. And I also understood that most clients that invest never remember when they made money, but they remember every single time they lost money. So we came up with some technology that would help people understand the risk and therefore get the type of returns that they would need for the long term so that they could retire in dignity.
Would you say that technology is your differentiating advantage?
It certainly is one of them. Most people think of technology to provide conveniences for them. And what I would say is to take the friction out of the business. And I find that most companies that figure out where they can take the friction out using technology are the most successful. FinTech was a bit late to the party because social media and many other ways of using technology were much more popular. So when I say friction and taking and being convenient, the people that are listening today don't play trivia anymore. You Google. People don't necessarily drive to the mall and get out and wait in line to buy things. They buy it through Amazon. People don't have huge servers. They use the cloud. So technology is a way to take the friction out of the business and make businesses much more convenient for people to utilize. We did that in the financial sector, but there are many, many opportunities for your entrepreneurs that are out there today to do that.
And of course, that's what we're looking for in the applicants of the BetterPlanet Challenge, is those who take friction out of the process of bringing electric transportation to New Jersey and beyond. BlackRock's been vocal in urging companies around plans for a net zero economy. Why do you think this is so important? And what do you think about the role that BlackRock plays in this transition?
Well, very simply said, we view climate risk as investment risk. So we have an obligation on behalf of our clients to act in their best interest. So we are engaging in various ESG issues that we believe are included in that. And as large shareholders in many companies around the world, we have an ability to engage companies in a way that others cannot. And there has been so much of an acceleration in clients adopting sustainable investment strategies. So as a result, companies need to know the desire of people to invest with an impact, and therefore they need to prepare for a net zero economy or risk their valuation suffering if they don't act. So we raise awareness and make sure people know that climate has more than one impact, the obvious one, but also it has very significant investment implications.
One of the significant areas of focus for our challenge is not just around electrified transportation, but with a consideration towards things that bring solutions forward that provide equitable solutions. How do you view the products and services in this industry that could, that relate to equitable solutions and provide solutions for the masses, not for the few, and BlackRock's role in investing in those kinds of technologies?
So diversity and inclusion makes a company better. You think better and you think differently. And in any product and any technology that you're planning, thinking about how to have the widest and most diverse and inclusive opportunity is very important to the future of the company. and then providing goods and services across the globe to a diverse community is very important. In fact, one of the funds that I would call an entrepreneurial fund that we raised a significant amount of money in recently is to provide funds to minority companies and minority startups, because there are some very, very good ideas that are coming, but it is hard to access money. So we have a lot of institutions and pension plans that are looking to provide opportunities and money to those sectors and see what innovations comes out of that.
And I think it's worth pointing out, at least in the venture asset class, black founders and women founders do 1.2 to 2x better on returns. So it's doing well by doing good. And I want to be clear that it's good for business, not just good for humanity. I want to talk a little bit more about the regional impact. And so we're going to welcome back Ralph Izzo, the CEO of PSEG, to join us. Ralph, are you there?
I'm here.
There he
Good
is.
to see you, yes.
Nice to see you. And so, this year's Better Planet Challenge focused around electrified transportation. I think sometimes people are thinking about when this issue comes up, they'd love to participate, but I think the first company that comes to mind is Tesla, as a consumer brand making lots of noise, which can be far too expensive for the masses. And so as we think about equitable solutions, I'm curious what you see as the role of the utility in pushing not just electric transportation, but on this issue of accessibility and equity.
Well, for over a century, the hallmark of the utility, in partnership with regulators, has been universal access. We didn't allow the market to determine who did and who didn't get electricity, who did and who didn't get natural gas heating. And similarly, I'd like to see some of the critically important, especially from a climate change, technologies that are available to folks be provided with universal access in mind. We certainly focused on that last year in our energy efficiency emphasis. This year, from an electrified transportation point of view, there are at least two paths to ensuring universal access. Path one, of course, is developing technologies that apply to mass transit that allow commuters in our congested urban areas to drive an electrified vehicle that is 70% cleaner from a carbon point of view. That would be one path. The second path is just bending the price curve, whether it's bending the price curve on chargers, bending the price curve on vehicles, so that there's a greater accessibility to a broader range of consumers. But without question, transportation being the number one source of carbon emissions in the nation today, for a long time being the number one source of carbon emissions in New Jersey, we have to make sure that the population writ large has access to these technologies.
Rob, how do you evaluate the innovations you see in this sector? How do you look at startups, and how do you think they relate to the utility?
Well, there needs to be better data to start. And the data is improving, and that comes through corporate disclosure on sustainable considerations. And I know at BlackRock, we're increasing the ability to measure and be very transparent and critical of some of the climate metrics. But I would tell you that you have a very special guy on today, because Ralph and PSNG are one of the companies that are committed to transparency. And that's reflected in the way that they are reporting. And also the fact that they recently announced that they're investing in offshore wind and a new energy efficiency program. So that's a great example of how a company can really step up when it comes to ESG. And it will be the companies like PSNG that know that the future is renewable energy, like wind farms. They know that they're taking action on climate change and implementing ESG initiatives. And for entrepreneurs, the amount of opportunities as we transition are going to be huge. So when you're talking about electric, what are the opportunities? Well, we have to redo a lot of grids around our country and other countries. There's going to be charging stations. There's going to be meters. Is Tesla about the car, or is it about the battery? So there are so many opportunities for entrepreneurs to get involved in the transition. And that's why I mentioned in the very beginning to you, it's climate risk is investment risk, and change and transition. And there are going to be opportunities for many entrepreneurs and people like me who have institutions and individuals that want to target their money that they can make good returns and have an impact and do good.
I can tell already we're going to run out of time here, so I've got a few follow-ups. So let's start with, Ralph, we talked earlier about storage, and I'm curious just on your response to, is Tesla a car company or a storage company?
Oh, they're a car company. Yeah, no. The notion that we'll have a bunch of traveling storage entities. I think the user of the vehicle will put their own range anxiety first and foremost, and their own deliverability first and foremost. I know you have questions, Aaron, but I just have to congratulate Rob and his entire organization. Look, I love working with our government regulators in partnership on New Jersey's energy master plan to make the state greener. But I can't tell you how helpful it is when you have a multi-trillion-dollar investment entity writing you an annual letter saying, think about the long term. Think about what you're doing to the planet. Think about what you're doing to changing demographics. So when you start getting public policy and the investor community behind you, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. And I didn't mean to take you off your line of questions, but I just had to make sure I mentioned that.
That was a big, that was you teed me up perfectly to the next question. We'll go to Rob first, but you hold companies to task on ESG initiatives. You're very public on climate change policy. And how have you found that, beyond the PR, you look to do well by doing good? How do you find investing in companies like PSEG so that you can make an impact in the future and also make the right return for your investors?
Well, one is creating awareness. One is creating awareness, and the other is making sure companies know that how much money wants to go into this so that they can position themselves appropriately for the future to attract that money. We have over $358 billion that is committed to sustainable investments. More and more money is pouring in. So when I sit down with a company like Ralph, I want to make sure that they're aware that the companies that are transparent, that are helping for the future of the industry, are going to attract more money. And that his competitors are starting to do certain things that it would be good if they were either leading or following. And so we create awareness. When you said put companies on watch and hold them accountable, we invest based upon specific guidelines and what they believe their achievements are going to be. And then, yes, we hold them accountable that they're making progress and the performance is showing whether they're meeting their goals or not. And I think that's what an appropriate investor wants. And as a fiduciary for millions of clients around the globe, I want to make sure that the investments I make, I keep my promises to our clients, our employees, and our shareholders.
Have there been times when you have looked at an investment that's got an excellent financial potential outcome, but does not check the box for you on the ESG initiatives, and have had to walk away where you've struggled with some of these policies, or does it just make you double down in that same regard?
I don't think the answer is to divest. I think the answer is to discuss with the company what the opportunities are, and then back them if they believe in that and are moving in that direction. And if they're not, we walk with our feet because we don't believe that they're on the right path. And there are so many different companies in the same industry that some are going to succeed where others are going to fail like anything else. But if they're not really focused on ESG, they're just missing a tremendous, important opportunity for the future.
Ralph, a similar question, but from your point of view, how do you manage the stakeholder and the shareholder goals? And have you found ever that there's conflict? And how do you work through that on some of these principles?
So to the extent that there's conflict, it's simply a question of timeframes. But I think one of our proudest moments is when we were recognized by the industry as being the company that does the best job of aligning the interests of shareholders with those of society. And remember, ESG was born out of the recognition that you wanted a sustainable business proposition. And sustainable meant you couldn't poison the planet. You had to make sure that what you were doing was in concert with what was environmental protection. S was in recognition of the fact that demographics are shifting and that no company can survive if they only appeal to a slice of the population, if they don't make full use of the richness of the supplier base, the employee population base. And that doesn't work unless people who are in your company that represent those constituencies feel respected and included. And then the G was a recognition of you better explain to people how you're making decisions and what decisions you're making, because information technology is going to reveal that no matter whether you choose to or not. So these were just very logical precepts, principles that a company would follow, recognizing the inevitable changes that were taking place in our environment, in technology, and in demographic shifts. And if you wanted to be around more than a couple of quarters, and we've been around 118 years, you better get on board this train because it's a fast-moving one.
Yeah. I mean, Rob, what would you say, on this fast-moving train, what are the biggest areas of opportunity? Where do you see places where entrepreneurs should be paying attention? You've talked about data. I'm curious, for the entrepreneurs watching and starting companies now, where do you think that there's a real opportunity?
So I would say take the friction out of a business that you see that currently exists. Try to find ways to streamline, make them more convenient, make them more accessible to a wider group of people, and use technology for that. Analytics are very, very powerful. The audience is very big. We need data. We need information. Try to streamline that information and take the friction out of the business. It's a very simple model, but it's one that is the common thread of the most successful companies today. And take into account that you can have a great company, your employees can do well, your clients can do well, and your shareholders can do well, and you can have a social impact, which is good. It can be done. You just have to focus on it and want to do it.
I couldn't agree more. One of my favorite entrepreneurs is a guy named David Kidder, who talks about painkillers, not vitamins, and I think that's what you're alluding to with taking the friction out of an industry. As it pertains, Rob, to electric transportation in particular, maybe from a global view, and then Ralph, I'll ask you more for a regional view. What are some of those areas of friction that you think present opportunity?
Well, we can get incredible analytics out of a vehicle in an appropriate way that could help the insurance companies, for example, tell you what kind of driver you are. We might be able to cut down on the incidence of accidents because we may find that cars that have a lot of technology are better driven in a very different way. Fuel efficiency. We may find that a mall may attract more people if they put up the electrical chargers and people can go and shop and also get their car charged. So it may be a way of advertising or bringing people into their operation. There are so many different avenues. And I was telling someone today about an electric vehicle. Or do you think it's going to happen and it's going to be successful? Just think about the person that was sitting in a horse and buggy in downtown Manhattan and they see the first Model T go by. Do you think there are going to be cars? Are they going to replace the horses and buggies? And the answer is yes. And it's time frame, as Ralph was saying. But now, if that's going to happen, you just think about what people thought then. How are the roads going to be? Do the roads have to be upgraded? Where are the cars going to park? How many people can be in the car? All of those different things. So the adjacencies to the main example, if it's an electric car, what are the adjacencies where you could take the friction out of that and try to figure out how to create a business around that? And I think if you sit down one night and you get a bunch of people, you're going to come up with some incredible ideas which will make it more efficient and better for the environment and have a company that could really thrive.
And there might even be a contest you could apply to about creating a better planet where you could win $50,000 and even talk to PSEG with that idea in mind. So Ralph, Rob brings up a variety of issues that have private and public sector implications, or even some ethical implications that if we have time I want to get to. But from your point of view, where do you see the opportunity more regionally for New Jersey?
So let me, Rob brought up some great opportunities. Let me just bookend it, right? So from my point of view, right now the challenge is range anxiety, and in the absence of charging infrastructure, you don't have people buying electric vehicles, and in the absence of people buying electric vehicles in New Jersey, you don't have people coming in to put the infrastructure. So as a company, what we've said to regulators is let us invest in the infrastructure so we can mitigate some of this range anxiety, and let us do it on highly traveled corridors. Let us do it for fleets that serve public good, whether that's school systems or municipal fleets and things of that nature. And then maybe the market will take off. And if you think about the size of this opportunity, right? Once upon a time, if you were in the business of transporting people, you thought about how much profit you could make per car. And then we had a bunch of disruptors who came along and said, cars just sit around for like 2/3 of the time. Maybe it's not how many dollars per car, maybe it's how many dollars per mile, and I get better use out of those cars, right? So information then became a means by unleashing the power of the idle car. Well, if you start thinking about self-driving vehicles, now all of a sudden it's not the profit I can make per car, it's not the profit I can make per mile, it's the profit I could make per person minute in that car. Because now I've got 4 people spending an hour and they're doing whatever they needed to do instead of worrying about traffic conditions and various other things. So if you do that arithmetic, and I know we don't have time to do it now, you're literally talking multiple orders of magnitude of market potential for people who want to take to use Rob's language, friction out of our daily lives. And don't think of this as a per vehicle opportunity. Think of this as a per person minute opportunity. And how can I make that person more productive every minute? So it's information technology, it's monitoring technology, it's sensing technology, it's a whole variety of things. But right now in New Jersey, sorry, you asked a simple question and I went off on a tangent. Right now in New Jersey, it's getting that infrastructure in place so people start buying these cars.
Well, I have a feeling that both of you could do the arithmetic, but we like you said, we don't have time for it now. There's quite a bit of social unrest over the past year, and I'm curious the connection between a clean energy future and electrified transportation. If you think there is a correlation to some of the issues culturally that we're dealing with today.
Well, the one thing I would say is that technology has no borders. And because of that, the data, the social media, all the things that we're being bombarded with are much broader than what we grew up and were bombarded with. States have borders, schools have borders, your house has a border, your community. We all know the rules within our border. But with technology, it has no borders. And I think there's too much data, and we're all across the world having problems getting all that data and trying to figure out what it means, how we should act, what the rules should be, and it's creating a lot of tension around the globe. And until we all as a society figure that out, it's going to be very, very hard to stop a lot of the issues that have been around for a long time, but are just bombarding us more and more every single day. So culling that down and creating rules so that we know how to operate better than we have in the past, I think will be better for everyone. And there'll be businesses to do in that as well as figuring that out.
Absolutely. Ralph, we're almost out of time, but any additional thoughts on that point?
Yeah, no, Rob hit it right on the head. Look, I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. New York City is allegedly a melting pot. I was one of the most homogeneous neighborhoods that one could possibly imagine, right? So we had borders, and now there are 2 trends that cannot be changed and should not be changed and should be embraced. One is the role of technology and how it's moving forward in a variety of fronts, whether it's information, transportation, energy, et cetera, and shifting demographics. And we should embrace the potential from these improvements in technology, from the richness that comes from diversity and inclusion, and realize that these are not things to be feared. But if you don't understand them, you could have a visceral negative reaction, and we just need to help bring everyone along to embrace these 2 trends.
Ralph, you've heard me say this a few times, but I think that you are setting the stage for how other utility CEOs could embrace the technology community, and I appreciate that. Rob, I very much appreciate your joining us here today. It seems like maybe you and I should spend a little bit more time at the PSEG headquarters. I think it might do something good for the head. I think Ralph's got the best head of hair in New Jersey. I'm pretty sure. But in the spirit of electric everything, I thought I would thank you officially with this very fancy hat. If it's going quickly enough,
that's great.
Is it working? I hope it's working. Rob, any closing thoughts while we wait for this ridiculous hat to finish scrolling?
No, I hope it's a solar-powered hat, though. But thank you very much. I look forward.
I really appreciate both of you joining us in this program. Happy Earth Day to you. I hope that, Rob, we'll see you at Propelify, where we embrace the culture of propelling ideas into action. Clearly something that you've done, that Ralph does. We normally end in person with a high five, which we can't do in person, but I'll invite you to join with the high five, the camera on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Happy Earth Day.
A clean energy future for Plainfield means a reduction of our carbon footprint, less emission sources around the city, more electric vehicles on our roads, energy efficient design and new construction to harness the power of the sun and to reduce energy consumption, more solar panels utilized by government and residents to reduce energy costs, and Plainfield will lead the way by transitioning its fleet of city-owned vehicles from gas and diesel to electric.
Clean energy future means every resident in Trenton can take advantage of the benefits of clean energy. We're installing public charging stations so that any resident with an electric vehicle can charge it.
A clean energy future for Highland Park means reduced air pollution for a healthier population, fewer cars on the state highway that runs through our downtown, healthy, walkable communities, more local job creation, electric cars that are affordable for all our residents, readily accessible charging stations, lower energy bills for everyone, shared green energy resources.
A clean energy future in Princeton and what that means. All residents from our affordable housing communities to our largest homes have access to vehicle charging, access to programs like community solar, have access to homes that are built to prioritize energy efficiency and the associated cost savings.
A clean energy future means equitable access to energy efficient products, cleaner air, improved health and quality of life for our residents, reduced operational costs, improved energy resiliency, more reliable and affordable transportation, and a minimal carbon footprint. That's what we're working to achieve here in Jersey City. Happy Earth Day.
Tell us what a clean energy future means to you in your backyard. Tweet us at WeAreTechUnited and PSEG News. Use the hashtag BetterPlanet, and we might even feature you in some of our upcoming Better Planet programming. Up next, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson is an American astrophysicist. He's a planetary scientist, an author, and science communicator. Since 1996, he's been the director of the Hayden Planetarium at the Rose Center for Earth and Space, right across the river in New York City. We won't hold that against him. Here to give us more information and a lesson about the history and importance of Earth Day, I'm thrilled to welcome Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Thanks, Aaron, for that warm introduction. I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, as duly announced, and I'd like to think of myself as your personal astrophysicist. I'm coming to you from a sector of the universe called nature. And I just want to spend a few minutes reflecting on Earth Day, what it means, at least to me, and how it all got started. As you may know, the first Earth Day was 1970. But have you ever asked the question, why wasn't it earlier than that? Why wasn't it 1965 or 1960? Earth was no less important before 1970 than it was in 1970. So what's going on? Well, let's go back to the early 1960s. There's a book, famous book, written by Rachel Carson called Silent Spring. That was kind of a wake-up call for people because it highlighted the consequences of not really thinking through what it is we're doing to our environment and to our agriculture that could come back later and bite us, influencing our health and our well-being. So that planted some seeds. But still, whatever was the critical mass necessary, it was not reached back then to have declared such a thing as Earth Day. What else was going on? Well, there were regional sort of pollutive events. All right, a lake would die, fishes would die. The things that would have a stream would get polluted. And people knew that was bad, yes, but they only thought of it in local terms. We have to fix the stream so that it is no longer killing fish, right? We have to fix the lakes so that we can continue swimming in it. The concerns were regional and local. This notion that maybe the air we're polluting matters more to just the city over which the pollution sits. Maybe the waterways that we are polluting matters more than just to the waterways. There's the water table that feeds other regions. And plus, air molecules don't need passports. They can travel wherever they want on Earth. So can water molecules. So this global sense, where did that come from? We should ask that. I think I have an answer. Let's go forward to 1968. The first time we went to the moon was 1968. Few people remember that because the folks who went to the moon in December 1968 didn't walk on the moon. But they were the first to ever leave Earth for a destination. They got to the moon, orbited a bunch of times, came back. But while they were orbiting, they lifted the Hasselblad camera up and photographed Earth rising above the lunar landscape. That, I could show you a picture of it, but I don't have to because you know exactly what I'm describing. Not only that images, but other images brought back by each of the Apollo missions, beginning in 1968, ending in 1972. Each of them showed Earth from space. And I cannot impress upon you the feeling that descended upon us all when witnessing such an image. I can't impress upon you. I'll try. Here it is. You ready? All right. Those images are now screensavers to you. They're just backdrop. They don't force you to take pause anymore. Maybe that's a good thing because you're familiar with what Earth looks like from space. But back then, what were we all familiar with? Earth in the social studies class. There was a globe on the windowsill, all right, or on the back cabinet, the globe of Earth. And that globe had color-coded countries. And no clouds. No, so Earth didn't have an atmosphere. Earth was just the land, not the air. Just imagine this mindset. And it's color-coded. Yeah, that's Earth. And now, here come these images. Earth, as only the universe can deliver it to you. As this juxtaposition of oceans, land, and clouds. Adrift in the darkness of space, with no one coming to save us from ourselves. We're all in this together. I submit to you that over those years that we went to the moon, over those years, there was a firmware upgrade in our consciousness. A cosmic perspective descended upon us. So, the first images of Earth from space, deep space, 1968. We walk on the moon, 1969. And what happens in 1970? Earth Day is founded. We create the Environmental Protection Agency. Signed into law, by the way, by a Republican president. What else? There's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. NOAA gets founded in 1970. This is an agency that combines thinking about the oceans and the air. They're related. And ultimately, they're all related to what happens on the land. And so NOAA, what's their job? To monitor Earth weather and climate and advise on safety with storms and commerce. The Earth. What else happens? Oh, a Comprehensive Clean Air Act is passed. A Comprehensive Clean Water Act is passed. DDT finally gets banned. 1972, and a year later, we would ban lead from gasoline. How about transportation? One of the biggest consumers of fossil fuels out there. Suppose instead you plugged your car into the wall to get power, rather than burning fossil fuels. Now let's think of oil. Oil is a source of energy. So is wind, so is hydro, so is solar panels, so is tidal, so is nuclear. There's more than one source of energy, but your car only runs on one of them. And that means the oil that drives your car is a strategic commodity. So that's why we know where the oil comes from in the world. We know what the price of oil is. It makes it into newspaper articles when the price of oil changes. But suppose all of that were different. Let's take your car, plug it into the wall. And now the power company can generate energy in whatever way it wants, whatever way we want it to. And it can be wind. It could be hydro. By the way, wind and hydro are solar power. It's the energy of the sun that evaporates waters from the oceans, and it rains in high places. You build a dam, you have hydroelectric. And the unequal heating of Earth's surface creates wind energy. So solar panels, wind, and hydro are all solar. Okay. So electrically driven civilization is not beholden to any one form of power over another. Because when you plug your apparatus, your car, your toaster into the wall, you're not thinking about where it came from. So that's an interesting future that may await us. But let me add to that, briefly, what that future might also bring. Consider all the reasons why humans have engaged in military conflict to the point of death. We fought each other over what gods you worship, over what your skin color is, over do you live on this side of a line in the sand versus the other? Where are the resources? Right? There are multiple reasons why we've all justified to ourselves why you would engage in military conflict. Well, space has unlimited resources of all kinds. And so maybe if space becomes, or the solar system as a minimum, becomes our backyard, then that folds into how we understand our existence on this earth. And maybe there's an entire category of war that will never again be fought. And those are wars over access to limited resources. Gone by virtue of our access to space. So, yeah, I'm biased because I'm an astrophysicist, but should a cosmic perspective ever be thought of as biased when it affects us all? And it's not hard for it to descend upon you, because all you have to do is to keep looking up.
Thank you, Neil, so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you on our side of the river in person sometime soon. And thanks to all of our incredible participants and speakers today, to all of you watching, the governor, to Rob Capito from BlackRock, to Ralph Isso, to all the mayors. We really appreciate your involvement, your support. It's the collaboration in the tech community among these various stakeholders is what makes our community so strong. And so for all of you participating, get involved, tweet at us, apply for this challenge. So if you are creating a solution that drives an electrified transportation future, that creates equitable solutions, apply at techunited.co/Earth Day. And if you can't hear me, just read the hat. techunited.co/Earth Day. From this sector of the universe known as the Garden State, I'm Aaron Price. I hope to see you very soon, online, in person. Happy Earth Day. And so you don't see the slide, right? We can't see the slide. That would look ridiculous.
Everything's great.
Okay, BetterPlanet. Here it is. So the problem with these glasses is that the BetterPlanet thing goes very slowly. Right?